Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Bay Nature Talk. Thank you so much for making time to join us and to join Joellen with NorCal Bats at your lunchtime today. So, my name is Leah Keener, and I'm the events coordinator here at Bay Nature Magazine. In case you didn't know, Bay Nature is a media organization based in Berkeley, California, and we produce quarterly nature print magazines and weekly nature content published on our website, as well as a selection of talks and hikes, as well as other events for the Bay Nature community here in the Bay Area. I invite you all to please turn your cameras on and join me today and to join Joellen. We really want to make an engaged environment, so please just turn your cameras on if you're comfortable and able and join us for this talk today. So before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that Bay Nature is a membership organization, and I invite you all to join as members if you like the content that we make and if you enjoy today's talk. But okay, I'm going to introduce Joellen Arnold now. Joellen Arnold is a self-proclaimed missionary for bats. Since she first met her first bat about 20 years ago, she's been spreading the good word about these amazing animals, which have been the subject of a lot of misinformation and fear over the ages. As a former teacher, she delights in sharing photos and fascinating facts about bats from around the world, and she helps injured and orphaned bats every day. Joellen works for NorCal Bats, or she is a volunteer with NorCal Bats, which was featured in a spring print issue piece for Bay Nature magazine, and that's going to be the basis for our talk today. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Joellen Arnold and welcome her to the screen, and we can start with our Q&A. Hi, Joellen. Thank you for joining today.
Hi, so glad to be here. And thank you so much for making this article about bats happen for us. I was really excited that Stephanie Penn went to the huge effort to come visit several times here in Sacramento and to meet the bats and photograph the bats and talk with us about our work with bats. Very exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, it was such a good piece to read and so thankful for you to be here today. So thank you. So we're going to start with our Q&A. And so the first question is, for those of us who haven't read this piece by Stephanie Penn about NorCal bats, do you mind sharing a bit of a summary about the bat healers, what it was about, and what people should know? Any big takeaways from the piece?
Well, I again, I really appreciate Stephanie making the effort to to come up here and to find out about bats and to talk to us about what we do with bats. And we're really lucky that our founder, Corky Quirk, has put her life and soul into trying to save as many bats as she can and into educating the public about why bats are so important. So that's what the gist of the article is how we care for bats and researchers who are working with bats and doing what we can to help the bats that need our help. And any bat that's on the ground needs our help because they are prey for many creatures and some natural, some not natural. And any bat that is not hiding somewhere during the daytime probably needs help. So I think that's the main thing. A lot of people think, well, there's a bat. Oh my God, I'm calling animal control. Don't do that. Call a wildlife rescue. And if you just search for your area and wildlife rescue or bat rescue, you will get people who can help you or can direct you to people who can help. Because unfortunately, frequently animal control just euthanizes any bat they get. And we want to avoid that. Sometimes there is something horribly wrong with the bat, and euthanasia is the only call. But it takes an expert to look at a bat and evaluate the bat and say, okay, this bat is just dehydrated, or this bat has some broken fingers. This bat needs to go into care. So anyway, that's what we do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction and overview. Our second question is that NorCal Bats is known for rehabilitating bats in need of help, but the piece that by Stephanie Penn also highlights the work that you do with the general public and with wildlife researchers. Can you describe the role of wildlife rehabilitators in this broader context and how you engage with both the general public and with researchers through your work?
Yeah, the first thing that happens when somebody calls us or texts us is, we say, well, what's going on? What did you find? Can you send us a picture? And from that, we go from there. Sometimes people are just saying, well, there's this bat in my front porch and it keeps dropping parts of, katydids and grasshopper legs and stuff. How do I make it go away? And then we can tell them, whoa, are you lucky? Sounds like you have a pallid bat roosting in your front porch, which is something that they just love. They are so adoring of stucco corners that are protected, and they'll come and bring their prey and eat it there and then go away and find some more. So I was really excited to talk to one woman who called with a complaint like that, and she ended up sending us a $200 donation and saying, "Oh, we're so excited about our pallid bat visitor. We hope he comes back." So we talk to people and try and figure out what's happening. And if they have an animal that's on the ground, a bat that's on the ground, then we encourage them to contain it. And that can be done with shoeboxes are our favorites. Get a shoebox, get another piece of cardboard, scoot the bat into the container without touching it with your bare hands, or just pick it up with something like a t-shirt and put it in the box. And then from there, we can go on and say, okay, does this bat need help? Yes, probably. If it was on the ground, it needs to be examined. So then we work on getting transport for it. And frequently the people are willing to bring them to us. And I prefer that to my having to drop what I'm doing here at home and get in the car and go pick somebody up. It's just much better if the public can bring them to us. So that's what we work on. And we have people who are willing to transport bats. They can't take care of them in their homes because they have children or dogs, or they just don't have the extra time. But they're willing to be on a transport list, which I think we're going to have a post in the chat that will tell you how to get on that transport list. So this is a nationwide list of people who are willing to drop things for an afternoon and go pick up a bat and deliver it to a bat carer somewhere in your area. So you might get a call once a quarter, you might never get a call. But if you're willing, it can really help us. I had someone just a couple of weeks ago, she brought me a bat. That bat didn't survive, unfortunately. It died overnight. But she said she'd be willing to help in any way she could. So the other day, there was a bat that was actually at a wildlife care association, but they don't care for bats there. So that bat needed to be picked up from there and taken to a rehabber in our area. And this person who had collected a bat in her own yard recently was really happy to go help that bat and deliver it. So we really can use that help in any way. And any donations are really important because it costs us. We mostly pay out of pocket for our bat care, and I certainly spend more on mealworms than I do on dog food for my little dog. So any donations that can come our way are really helpful. And what really gets us are the vet bills. So you'll see some bats today when we start to share them who had to have a limb amputation. Mostly it's wings. And that starts at like $250 per bat. So we really need help with the vet bills, and we don't get funding from any state organization or anything. So we can use help all the time with those things. So is that enough of an answer?
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it. And it sounds like working so closely with bats, you must get a lot of insight in a way that a lot of researchers might not even get, even if they're studying them. Are there ways that your work can feed into that work that people who are publishing papers and that kind of thing could make use of?
Absolutely. Yes, we every bat that doesn't survive gets bagged and tagged and set aside for research. And we have one researcher who's mentioned in the article, Layla Harris, who is doing a great study on pesticide residue in bats, and she's especially looking at newborn baby bats. So all of our bats are of use to her, and she surveys the roosts where the baby bats are born, and she brought me a neonate the day he was born last year, who had severe curvature of the spine. He was quite an amazing little guy, and he didn't survive ultimately, but he was an interesting case study, and he wouldn't have come into care unless she had been snooping around to see if the baby bats were being born yet, and found him on the ground under his roost. Um, so there's that kind of work, plus all of our bats go, if they don't survive, they go to research of various kinds. And one thing that is being done is that wind farms are really, really hard on bats. There are actually more bats killed by wind farms than birds are killed by wind farms. So, and especially hoary bats and red bats who are solitary. You'll meet one of them in a little bit. Solitary tree roosting bats who are in their numbers are dwindling rapidly due to loss of habitat and now to wind farms. So dogs are trained as sniffer dogs to find bat carcasses in the area under wind farms, and our carcasses go to that to help train those dogs. And actually, I have a bat right now who came from a wind farm in Livermore, and she was found by a bat biologist who was just excited to find a bat that was not dead when she was searching for bat bodies. Anyway, and that bat's she's going to survive. I don't know if she'll be releasable. She still has a swollen wrist on one wing, but she's very much alive several months later, so that's exciting.
Awesome. And that's amazing. And I didn't realize that so many bats were struck and killed by wind farms like that. I didn't know that that was a thing,
Yeah,
but
it's pretty horrible. And unfortunately, unfortunately, the wind farm companies know how to cut back on bat devastation. And some places are working on it and some places are not. So the main thing is that bats don't fly when it's really, really windy.
mm,
So if the speed at which the wind turbines start turning is at a higher wind speed, there are fewer bats out flying, because when the wind is really strong, insects don't fly. So bats don't fly to try and catch the insects. Mm. So changing that, it's called the cut-in speed. Changing that cut-in speed to a higher wind rate is, that's what needs to be done. And some areas like I get my electricity from SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District, and their cut-in speed is higher. It costs them a little bit of money, but it saves thousands of bats. So that's just super, really, really important stuff. So I think that,
thank you. Yeah. Well, that was really helpful. And I was wondering, for the next question, I was wondering if you could share a bit about some of the individual bats that you've cared for. And also, can you speak a bit about why bats in general are so important for the ecosystems that they are in? We got a question from Evan who asked that question.
oh yeah, all of our bats in Northern California are insect-eating bats, and they run the gamut from teeny tiny little bitty things that fly really high, the little midges and mosquitoes, and um, lots of crop pests, corn, I always say it wrong, corn earworm. Anyway, uh, lots of crop pests. So the farmers who farm under the Yolo bypass, where we have at least 250,000 Mexican free-tailed bats who come to give birth every summer, they don't need to use any pesticides because the bats take care of all of the flying insects that would otherwise get the rice crop there. So it's primarily that bats are nature's pesticide. They they eat what they eat, and then what they eat are insects, and we need them very much.
Thank you. That's really helpful context. And yeah, I love how you said that bats are nature's pesticides. That's really cool. Um, let's
Sort of
see.
like we don't really need to kill rodents if we just have plenty of owls, you know.
Mm,
So
yeah, there's parallel there. And our next question is, could you share some stories about individual bats that you've cared for? And I think this is a great opportunity to bring our extra special guests, your bat patients, up on screen now.
yes, that'd be great. So let's just see if we can get the technology to work with us on this. So I need the bat cam to go into operation. And I need to tap OK. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I want to tell you about a Mexican free-tailed bat that came into care last year. I don't have her to share with you because she's not all that used to being handled anymore. But I have another Mexican free-tailed bat here who is used to being handled. If I can find her, there she is. I borrowed the NorCal Bats bat ambassadors for this talk. The bats that I'm caring for are not bat ambassadors yet. This is a Mexican free-tailed bat's rear end, so you can see why it's called a free-tailed bat. The other bats I'll show you don't have this really, really obvious tail sticking out. And the Mexican free-tailed bat is the fastest mammal on the planet. I say it's the fastest animal on the planet because they fly in horizontal flight. They fly at 100 miles an hour, which is faster than any other animal on the planet can fly. In horizontal flight, peregrine falcons stoop. That's cheating, not horizontal flight. And another cool thing about this bat is that she has whiskers on her toes. Can you see the whiskers on the
Yeah,
toes?
I think I do just a little bit like little whiskers,
Little
hairy
whiskers.
toes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like cat whiskers, but they feel, not only do they feel their way up into a crevice when they're getting ready to roost, but it also helps them feel air currents while they're flying. And notice that she has kind of a bare bottom. So
Mhm.
these guys are built for speed. So everywhere where they could save on energy, they do. So they don't, their fur ends right above their little butt. And they have a face. Let's see if I can turn her around. You're a very good girl. They have a face
Oh,
that is also built for speed because the ears meet right in the center, making a V to cut through the air really, really
mm,
rapidly. And this little girl, I think she's missing some parts of her fingers, her wing fingers.
mm,
So it ends a little abruptly on that wing.
mhm.
But Mexican free-tailed bats are high flyers. I always forget how many thousands of feet up they fly. 10,000 feet, could be higher. I don't know. They go up looking for streams of insects in the air. Oops, there we go. So long, narrow wings, and they'll fly out 50 miles to forage at night from their favored roost spot. And it's quite a sight to see them. But I wanted to tell you about a Mexican free-tailed bat that came into care last year. I call her Light Rail because she was found under a light rail station. A member of the public watched people using power washers to wash out the lights above the light rail station where there were baby bats roosting. And he saw this bat fall to the concrete, fall onto a track, and saw a train run over her
Oh
and
God.
sever her wing. So
Oh God.
she came in with, maybe a quarter inch of her wing was still attached.
Mm.
Um, but he cared for her for a couple days before he found us. So it's absolutely amazing that the bat is still alive. It's absolutely fantastic that she's happy and pretty healthy, and she lives with a little group of other unreleasable Mexican free-tail bats. And she'll be an ambassador one day too. Um,
Wow.
Anyway,
Mm.
so that's the amazing Mexican free-tail bat, and I highly recommend that anyone travel up here to the Davis, Sacramento area and visit the huge colony that flies out every summer night to go
Mm.
foraging because it's just a beautiful sight. And if you wanted to see that anywhere else, you'd have to probably go to Texas to see it. So
Mm.
Davis is much closer. And if you go to the Yolo Basin Foundation, you'll find the link to the Yolo, um, it's called Yolo Bat. The name just changed. So it's Yolo Bat Talk and Tour.
Mm.
It happens many, many nights in the summer months, because that's
Mhm.
when the females come up to this nice warm area with lots of bugs to be able to give birth and um, raise their young.
Oh,
So
that's
that's
so
the Mexican free tail. Very,
Thank you
very
so much.
important cultural helper.
Mhm. And just for everyone on Zoom, in case you didn't see it, there's go into gallery view if you click on view in Zoom, and that'll make sure that you can see the bat camera. Um, yeah, there should be three screens that you can see, one with Joellen and one with the bats and one with me. But thank you
Okay.
so much for showing the
Okay,
Mexican.
I'm going to show you another. Actually, I have four bats I want to show you. So this next bat is called a big brown bat. And everybody's always like, oh, whoa, that's not a very big brown bat. But compared to the little brown bats we also have in California, she is big. And this is, I'm going to turn on this. I have a bat detector here, which might let us hear her echoloc there. Hear those clicks?
Mm-hmm.
She's making those sounds with her mouth. So she's sending out the echolocation sounds
Mm-hmm.
to try and orient herself. And this is a very, very special bat, not only because she's cool and she's a big brown bat, but she was born in captivity to a mother who was in care. And for some reason, her eyes didn't develop. So this is an actual blind bat. Uh, Very, very rare circumstance. Her eyes just never opened. They didn't develop, but she's otherwise just perfect. However, without her eyesight, she probably would not make it in the wild. So she is a lifelong bat ambassador. But look at her luxurious coat, really gorgeous fur. And
Mm-hmm.
see how her tail curls under. You can't really see the tip of her
Mm-hmm.
tail because it's
Mm-hmm.
curled way under. And if she were able to fly and be in the wild, she would use her tail as a catcher's mitt to catch insects in and then toss them up into her mouth the way we do with popcorn. So
Oh,
there's her whole tail, but it
wow.
stretches out. It's pretty amazing,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it? You
That is
know.
the catcher's glove analogy is really cool. But how
Mhm.
did this bat come into NorCal Bat Care?
Well, her mother was in care
Oh,
uh,
okay.
for an injury,
Mm,
and this bat was born in captivity
mm,
while her mother was in care.
nice.
And I'm not sure what the status of her mother is at this point. She may have been released, but we didn't think that Frances could make it in the wild, so she's still here. And note she has no whiskers on her toes,
Mm-hmm.
bare toes.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yes. And the fur goes all the way down to the tail membrane.
Mm.
Anyway, So that's a big brown bat. Eptesicus fuscus
Mm.
is the scientific name. Go on. And these ambassadors just crack me up because they're always just really happy to crawl back into their carriers. So, and usually they roost together too with different species.
Mm.
I pulled them each out because I wanted to be able to find them easily.
Mm.
So I have them in individual carriers right now, but they'll go back together. And that's another really neat thing about bats is they're not picky. They don't care who they're roosting with. You know, they just like to be cozy. So they look for another warm body.
Mm.
And I'm pulling out this really big guy. And he is a representative of our new state bats. And he was the cover boy for the story.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
this is a pallid bat, and you can see his pale fur. And they live all over California, from the deserts up to the redwoods, from the foothills into the Sierra and out to the coast. They are everywhere. And look at these huge ears they have. And this is the species that frequently likes to snack on people's porches. So
Mm.
um, this is who you'd be looking at. This guy is he's just a sweetheart. I don't know his story, but he does have damage to at least one of his wings. He's missing a big part of his tail membrane, not tail membrane, wing membrane. And that often happens due to cat damage.
Mm.
Cats are the biggest danger to wildlife, probably in the world. I don't know, my guess. Other than humans, of course, we destroy habitat, and that's really devastating. But cats do a heck of a lot of damage. What are you going to do? You going to look around? Yeah, he says, I'm looking. I'm looking. Yes, they have a beautiful face, and this is now our California state bat as of January 1. So very exciting to have this representative of his species. Oops, sorry. I keep moving them around. And they eat really big things, and they are whispering bats. They have these huge ears because their modus operandi is that they fly overhead using their echolocation and listening for footsteps in the sand or the grass. And then they'll drop to the ground, stop echolocating, and just listen. So they will just use their ears to be able to dial in on where that creature is. Could be a centipede, could be a scorpion, could be a grasshopper, katydid, big crunchy things.
Mhm.
And then they'll pounce on it and pick it up and fly away with it to eat it somewhere safe. You okay, buddy? Yeah, he's doing a little bit of shaky, which is sometimes just to kind of warm up and get oriented. Then he's going, this face doesn't look like the face I'm used to seeing. Yeah, you're a good boy. You're a very good boy.
Mm.
Okay, so that's our California state bat, the pallid bat.
Mm. And a reminder to anyone in the chat, please ask your questions or raise your hands for anything that you might be wondering about.
Okay, and this bat that I'm about to bring out, she might fuss, she might hiss. Um, this is a hoary bat, and they're called hoary bats for their frosty looking fur.
Mm.
Oh, you see her
Oh,
hanging here,
yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
um, they are feisty. So yeah, you hear her hiss.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and so this girl has a miraculous story.
Mm.
Um, a wildlife biologist working for SMUD, our Sacramento Municipal Utility District, was doing nest checks in an area that's very rural
Mm.
and found her hanging by one wing from a strand of barbed wire
Oh my
and was able to disengage her from the wire, but her wing was her humerus, her upper arm was badly broken.
God. Mm.
So it had to be amputated, but she is very much alive. And I forgot to try and feed any of these guys, but I know she didn't get to finish eating this morning, so she is likely to want to try and eat. Yeah, there we go. Oops. Good girl. So this is her first visit in front of a camera. And when we get female bats in the spring, we assume that they are pregnant
Mm.
and hope that all goes well with a bat like this one, though, who had the really awful injury and had to have an amputation. She had to be on antibiotics for a couple of weeks,
Mm.
and that can have a bad influence on her pregnancy, if indeed she is pregnant, which I really think she is. When she gets fed up, full of food, it's really obvious that she has two pups growing in her. Um, can't really see it right now, but trust me. I'm sorry. I'm just recovering from COVID, so got a little coffee going on. But Ahori bats are absolutely amazing. They, like red bats, have this really, really furry tail. Look at it, the fur goes all the way to the tippy end of her tail. It's absolutely incredible. Um, and when they are roosting during the day, they are usually wrapped up in their furry blanket of a tail and just hanging by one foot. And this species looks particularly like a pine cone, are usually found in coniferous trees. So
Mm.
redwoods are very, very popular with them. Anyway, you see, even her toes have incredible camouflage.
Mhm.
The hoary, frosty look goes all the way to her toes, which is
Mhm.
pretty incredible. I'm
Mm. Wow.
gonna try and turn her around so we can get a better face view, but she's, yeah, there you go. There you go. And see, inside her wing, she has a lot of fur too. Most other
Mm.
bats do not have all this fur inside their wings. The light brown is fur.
Mhm. And is that also for camouflage, or why does this particular species
I
have so
think it's
much fur?
about warmth. This species, the hoary bat, is the most widespread species in the Americas. So they are found, sorry, I dropped a worm. They are found from South America all the way out to the Galapagos Islands,
Mm.
the Hawaiian Islands, up into Canada. And so they need to be really warm for that cold stuff. And they
Mhm.
fly long distances, they migrate. We're just learning about their migration patterns, which they may not have. They may just fly wherever the heck they feel like it. There's some great research going on right now,
Mhm.
and we have a lot to learn. So these bats are big enough. They weigh, well, she weighed just over an ounce. I mean, she looks bigger, but she weighed like 32 grams, and an ounce is 28 grams. And this is one of our largest bats in North America. When I first started learning about bats in 1997, we were told at the workshop I went to that there were about 850 different kinds of bats worldwide. And now with DNA study and much more bat research going on, that number is up over 1,400, 1,450 approximately. I just spilled some worms.
Mm.
So
That's
things
funny.
rapidly in bat research.
Mm.
And look how happy she is to eat. She was so funny. When she first came in, I couldn't get her to eat at all unless I had her flat on her back.
Mm.
Otherwise, the worms just fell out of her mouth, and I don't know if she had a jaw injury
Mm.
that made it hard for her to keep the worms in her mouth
Mm.
or what. But
Mm.
anyway, look how her little toes grip.
Mhm.
And these bats have a very strong bite, so um, real gloves are important with these. And actually, it's really important never to handle any bat barehanded. If you do that, that's a death sentence for the bat, because if the bat has had contact with a human skin to skin, the health department will need to kill it to see if it tests positive for rabies, which it probably won't, but it's safer for the bats and safer for the humans to just be sure you never handle a bat or any other wild mammal barehanded.
Mhm. Makes sense. We've gotten some questions from the audience members. One question was from Melissa. Melissa, would you be interested in unmuting and sharing your question? I can also ask it if you prefer, but please feel
Sure.
free. Yeah.
My first question was if you're going out to an area like on a hike where you know there are bats near a pond, for example, there also tends to be a lot of mosquitoes.
Mhm.
So, how much of an effect would it be if, like, the hikers are wearing bug repellent due to the mosquitoes? Would that have a major effect on the bats?
Oh, I don't think so. I think that's just fine. No, it's not like you're spraying the bat with bug repellent. So
Yeah.
I think it just keeps the bugs away, but it's not like you're spraying the bat or the insects with the bug repellent. So I think that's fine. I
Mm.
think
I have a second question. Is it okay if I ask that now?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so my second question was I went on a bat walk at a birding festival last year, and I learned that the different bat species emerge in the evening at different times, depending on the species. And I was wondering if there's any sort of resource that kind of describes some of the different times that they might come out, like before sunset, after sunset, that sort of thing, for our Northern California bats.
And I think it's kind of a general rule of thumb that the tinier bats come out earlier. So our smallest bat, which is the canyon bat, and also small myota species, the little brown bats, they come out right at sunset or even just before. And then the larger bats seem to fly later. But I don't know of an actual resource that would tell us that. Um, but there are some good guidebooks out there about bats, and there are actually some bifolds, so big pamphlets that I've seen that are really good. I can't quote a name right now, but if you look on, there's a really interesting resource that's called Speleo books, because they cater to cavers, and they have great bat stuff. They also have a section that's specifically for bat things, but I can't think of what the name of that is. So if you just look on Speleo books, I would try and spell it, but I'm terrible at spelling out loud.
You know,
They have great stuff.
Mm.
So I recommend looking there. Okay, and this bat has been a very good girl.
Yeah, we have a comment from one of our audience members saying, I think she just ate her weight in mealworms. It seems like
Just
she's been
about,
chomping
just
down.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. We also had a question from Susan. Susan, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Oh, sure. Hi. Thank you so much. I was just really so appreciative of what you do for the bats and wondering how long you've been rehabbing bats.
I think I've actually only been rehabbing for about the last 10 years. And I started out just helping with transportation. And then, now it's pretty much my full-time job. So
That's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
And then we have a question from someone, Evan. Evan, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Oh, yes, thank you. So you're talking about that cool behavior where they sort of shovel the insects into their mouth with their tail. I was wondering if that's common or just that one species.
I think it's common. I think that's how they mostly hunt. I mean, I used to think that they flew along with their mouths open and just, the insects flew into their mouths, but no, actually, they catch them with the tips of their wings and toss them into their mouths and with their tails. And there are some wonderful videos online if you look for, bat catching moth. Um, just some really wonderful slow motion video of bats um, snarfing up the insects. It's
Mm.
really
Awesome, thank you.
and speaking of eating her weight in insects, that is what female bats do when they're pregnant and when they're nursing, is they eat pretty much their weight in insects every night, which
Wow.
is part of why they are so important to us to keep the insect loads down.
Mm. Amazing. We had a question from Shelly. Shelly, would you like to ask your question? Or I can also ask. Shelly was wondering, are there any bat rehabbers in the Bay Area, specifically in the Mid-Peninsula area where Shelly lives?
Um, I'm not sure about that. That's an issue. We keep doing trainings and trying to get other wildlife organizations to care for bats. And I think the Mid-Peninsula is an area where we might still have a desert for bat care. But don't quote me on that. If you go to the Bat World Sanctuary website, um, there is a find a local rehabber asset there. You can put in your location and look for bat care organization or volunteers. And that would be the way to find out. I know in San Francisco, Yggdrasil Wildlife Care is trying to get bat care going. And in the East Bay, the Lindsay Wildlife Experience does bat care. That's in Walnut Creek or Concord. I always forget which. So those are some good options. And I think there's another one in the Fremont area, but I don't remember. You need to look on that um, Bat World Sanctuary website to see.
Thank you. And we can include links to that, the bat sanctuary that you had mentioned in our follow-up email as well.
Yeah,
And then we
the
have,
transportation link, that is so important. And it's so wonderful to feel like, oh, good, I can do something easy to help bats and just be willing to transport a bat from one place to another. It's really fabulous. So that link will be in there.
Thank you for sure. And we had a question from Theo. Theo, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, thank you so much, Joellen and Leah. This is really marvelous. Um, as a person who loves bats, when I heard about the white nose infestation, I worried about, any kind of transfer of, these kinds of diseases that are really crippling. And I was wondering if you could address that.
Yes, it's really horrible, horrible disease. And some places in the East Coast have lost 99% of their bat species, their bat population, especially the tiny bats are hit hard by it. Here in California, we've had detection of the bacteria that causes the syndrome, but we haven't seen it in big numbers here, partially because in order for it to flourish, it needs to, the bats need to be at a very cold temperature. It flourishes in caves where bats are hibernating. And in California, our bats don't hibernate in huge numbers in caves. As a matter of fact, most of our bats don't hibernate. They might slow down in the winter, but you know, we have warm spells where the insects are out again, so the bats come out again too. And our bats move around a lot too. So our Mexican free-tailed bats, some of them stick around here in the Central Valley in the summer, but we think some of them go to the Bay Area. We don't really know where they are. So we're really, really concerned about white nose syndrome, and we're keeping an ear to the ground as to in research that's being done. It's been the bacteria has been found up in the foothills north of here, but we haven't seen any in the Central Valley yet, knock wood, and hope we never do, because it requires being able to isolate the individual. Okay, you think she's done? Well, one more maybe. Nah, I think I'll just spit that out. Are you done? You're a mess. You have bits of worm all over the place. Anyway, okay, I think she's done. One thing I wanted to tell you, yeah, and there's a wonderful hoary yell. She says, "Leave me alone," and the mouth just opens so wide. So that's why people are frightened by these bats when they find them under a tree if they've been knocked down by a crow or a jay, because they tend to throw themselves on their back and spread their wings open wide and open their mouth really wide and hiss. So they sound kind of like a rattlesnake. And people think, oh my God, it's a rabid bat. No, it's a bat being a hoary bat. And that is why we really have to educate the public and be able to come and help these guys when they're down. Usually when there's a hoary bat on the ground, it's fine. And we're able to release it. Oh, there her baby bumps are showing. You see these two bumps. Hoary bats are one of the few species that give birth to more than just one pup. Most bats have just one pup a year. But hoary bats, actually, they have 4 teats instead of just 2. So they can manage having more than one pup.
We had one final question from Audrey. And I was wondering, Audrey, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Hi, thank you for this. This is wonderful. I'm wondering what general people out there, homeowners and such, can do to encourage bats around their homes, around their yards, anything like that?
That's a great question. And one thing is keep your cats indoors. Cats are so devastating to all wildlife. I wouldn't want you to encourage bats to be around your home if you have a cat who's going out and stalking them.
Okay.
And another really important thing is never to use any kind of glue trap. You know, glue traps for insects or to catch mice. They're so cruel, and they catch bats and snakes and lizards and everything else. And they are just devastating. I've had cared for a few glue trap survivors who did survive, but usually they die. And you don't ever want to see a bird caught in a glue trap or on a fly strip. They're devastating. Another thing that's really important is if you have a pool, that is great because bats swoop down to get a drink out of pools and ponds. And that's wonderful, but sometimes they misjudge and they might catch a wing and fall in. You need to be sure that if you have a swimming pool or anything that has straight sides on it, be sure that there's a way for small creatures to climb out. So there's a device called a frog log. If you just Google frog log, you'll see this really cool device, costs only about $20 online. And it hangs over the edge of the pool so frogs and lizards and bats can catch and climb out of the pool.
Thank you.
Really, really important. And the other thing is to be sure that you plant native plants, because that draws in the native insects, and it's the native insects that the bats are out hunting every night. So those are some things that really help.
Super, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Audrey, for your question, and Joellen for your response. And to close up, Joellen, would you mind letting us all know ways that we could get involved with NorCal Bats and lend be a friend to bats around us?
Yes, if you just Google NorCalBats.org, you don't even Google it, just put that in, NorCalBats.org. You'll see our page that gives you ideas about how you can help. Cash is always wonderful. But we also have an Amazon wish list that helps us with the medications and supplements. The mealworms get supplements and the bats get supplements, and it all costs money. And so that would be really helpful. And also, I'm going to be with some of these bats at an Annie's Annuals event on June 15th, Saturday. I'll be speaking, and we'll table for a little while after the talk with some of these bats. So that's in Richmond. So if you look for Annie's Annuals, you'll see that. And on the NorCal Bats website, you can look at our calendar, and Corky is the one who really does a lot of public speaking, like almost every day. She's out there somewhere in Northern California with these bats, teaching people about them. So look at the calendar and you can see where she's going to be, and you can meet the bats up close and personal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joellen. And it sounds like Evan says that the NorCal Bats crew will also be at Poly State Historic Park.
Right.
It's pretty cool,
Right.
so we'll be there too. And yeah, thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, Joellen, for being here and sharing your expertise and sharing the NorCal Bats with us. To everyone listening, if you enjoyed the talk, I invite you to join as a member. I'll send a follow-up email with all the links from today's talk, as well as a code that you can use for $5 off a membership. So thank you all so much for joining, and thank you again to Joellen. This was great, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.